everyone. Thank you so much for watching The Outside Story online at the 43rd Mill Valley Film Festival. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Faridah Gbadamosi, and I'm the U.S. Indies Programming Fellow this year. And I'm so excited that we have the writer and director of The Outside Story here with us, Casimir Nozkowski.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for watching.
So the first question I would like to ask is, what inspired this film? Was this a personal experience that you had getting locked out of your apartment, or?
I have definitely been locked out of my apartment. I've actually been locked out multiple times, I'm sorry to say. No, let me think. Inspiration-wise, it came from a few places. I mean, like a lot of screenplays, I think some of it came from kind of practical thoughts where I was like, I'm at this point where I want to make a film that is makeable. And I want to make a film that is about New York because I live in New York and I love New York. But I also want to make a film that's universal. And I also it's all these like kind of intentionality of like, I want to make a film that's like seems like it's about a small thing, and then kind of opens up into this like bigger thing where problems stack up and more kind of things happen against our protagonists. And because I love New York, I want to make a film that's like a tapestry of New York characters. That's like, what's a story that can kind of introduce all these characters? And so I don't know if that's lame to be like, hey, I had all these kind of mechanical ways of approaching it, but it's like, I love setting kind of restraints when I'm writing and giving myself like, all right, all these things need to happen. So that was kind of like my foundation. And then in terms of like the story, I was like, wait, I don't think I've ever seen a great film about someone being locked out. And the times in my life when I've been locked out, I've actually had the thought, like I do about way too many things, and I'm usually wrong, oh, this would make a great movie because it's kind of like this natural disruption, like it's a natural way that your life gets kind of thrown out of balance that isn't on its face like super extreme or violent, it's just kind of a very kind of simple way to kind of like throw someone out of their comfort zone. So I think that was, I was attracted to just kind of exploring this small thing and how to make it a movie-worthy story. And then the last thing I'll say is that I also was once an editor of in memoriam videos. So I'd actually cut a lot of in memoriams for celebrities who hadn't yet died. I'm also someone who I enjoy and kind of judge way too critically all the in memoriams like the Oscars do and all that. And so I just thought when I did that job, I thought, wow, this is a great career for someone who's depressed, for someone who's stuck, for someone who's in a rut. And even though I'm not saying that's the biggest part of the film, but it just was like, it felt like a great way to kind of like, I don't know, set up the background of this character and kind of identify him as someone who in some ways he's stuck, but in other ways he's like this perfectionist. You can see this kind of glint of like being a filmmaker, being kind of a richer character and hoping that he accesses it. So sorry for the long answer, but those are all the things, probably like 10 others, but those are all the things that kind of started it off.
That's a great answer.
Good.
It answers some other questions I had, like why did you come up with the in memoriam character? But
I can go deep on in memoriams. Watch out. I mean, like really, like I think way too much about it.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about the film, of course, was the cast. It was really great seeing the great assortment of different actors that I recognize and adore. Mm-hmm. I wanted to know what went into the casting process for the film.
I am so with you. I watched this movie both as a filmmaker on it, but also as just like a super fan of these people. I love my cast. I know that's a cliche. Everywhere out there in the world, directors are saying they love their cast. I extra love them. No, I love them for lots and lots of reasons, mostly because I admire them so much and I admired their work. This is my first feature, and I also, I didn't have expectations about who I'd be able to find for this film. I mean, I wanted to shoot for the moon, but really the fact is we ended up reaching out to people who were my favorite actors. Frankly, Brian Tyree Henry was someone who I love in Atlanta. Atlanta's probably my favorite show on TV. He's someone who also is very well known in the theater world in New York. My wife's in the theater world. and just someone who I deeply admired and thought there was no chance that he's going to do this film. Um, and he was the first person, you know, that we reached out to. And, you know, as a first-time filmmaker, it is interesting. The casting process is much harder than you think it is. You think it's like you hire a casting director and then maybe other people are smarter. They don't think that. I thought, you know, you hire a casting director, couple weeks, you work it out, no big deal. But it's actually, it is an intense process. I think, especially when you have an ensemble film like this, when you have, I just really had a lot of dumb ideas where I was like, oh, this will be easy. It's like a New York film, you know, you're basic. We'll get a couple of New York actors. It'll be awesome. And then you realize, oh wait, there's like 25 speaking roles. So it actually won't be that easy. But no, we reached out to Brian Tyree Henry through our great casting director, Stephanie Holbrook, our great producers, Frank Hall Green, Brian Newman, Joe Stevens. And we were lucky enough to get through to him and to get him a script. And then him and I had lunch, and we had a great lunch, and we talked about Atlanta, and we talked about what he wanted, and the fact that like the kind of movies he was doing, the fact that he was doing like, it felt like 10 movies a year was just like out there and so prolific. And then, you know, we had to cast the rest of the film. So once he was on board, I would say that the other actors were just, I think, you know, I think they liked the script, but I think they were also honestly super excited to have an opportunity to work with Brian. And I was in contact with him throughout the process, where I was always, I mean, I would say my favorite part of the process is working with the actors. And it's not like we had a rehearsal time or anything like that. We shot this film in 16 days. It was like laser fast, 3 takes, go, 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 don't, you know. And I think, you know, for me, I just, I wanted the actors to be happy in their characters. I wanted them to kind of make the characters their own. And so with Brian, I wanted him to feel comfortable and have the chemistry with the actors. And so there was a lot of like getting people and then talking to Brian about it. And he was just so great. Oh, I know her. She's amazing. Oh, she's on that FX show. Oh my God, I met her at such and such. You know, again, so kind of welcoming. And I think it would happen both ways too. And just people who were so excited to work with Brian, like I was saying. And then I think the last thing casting wise was just bracing people for the fact that it was such a fast shoot, that it's like truly an indie film. And that, you know, as much as I want to give people, you know, I want to take time for rehearsal or have takes and do, you know, tons of, can you believe it? I want to have extra takes. You know, you need to have actors who are really like game, who are just like, great, hit the ground running, no rehearsal, like literally no rehearsal. In 9 out of 10 times we were, you know, we would do blocking rehearsals, but there wasn't like, let's like dig into that line. Let's dig into your motivation. Although, but some of these actors, Sonequa Martin Green, I have to talk about her because she would like, I mean, they all did, but she would like bring all this great background to her own character. And she was someone, you know, she's the lead of just a little show called Star Trek Discovery, no big deal. But she came in, another one of my like truly favorite actors, loved her on The Walking Dead. She came in to do this film. She shot out all her scenes in 3 days and did it on her Thanksgiving break. Like flew in from Toronto, like left Star Trek, shot our film, flew back at the end of Thanksgiving, back into Star Trek. So again, it's like that to me is the casting process right there, is finding actors who are not only wonderful, but also just are like so game for the like indie film approach. I mean, I myself wasn't even totally braced for it. I was like, wait, we're done. We got it. We got it. So the luck, the gratitude I have for these actors is enormous because they're wonderful.
It sounds like it was a really, a very positive and collaborative like casting process, and that everyone worked really hard to like make the film happen, which is always great to hear.
Totally. No, I think it really was. It was collaborative. It was great. I mean, it's intense. I mean, I would say for other first-time filmmakers, like get ready for some time to think about casting. Like that is a thing. like it really is not easy, especially when you're an indie, because you really have to kind of do all the legwork and reach out to people and talk to people. And it's not, I'm not complaining about it. I mean, I loved it. It just is, you have to be, it makes sense. You know, you're going into the trenches with these people, and they're going into the trenches with you, and you really have to be thoughtful And again, my casting director, you know, was Stephanie Holbrook, was someone who was really with me, like in my ear all the time, and really able to kind of talk about these people and talk with them, talk with their agents, managers. Anyway, it was just a great part of the process, and getting to like work with these actors, again, just really dreamy, you know. Maybe one last thing I'll say is that I was first-time filmmaker, very nervous about production, you know, right? I mean, that makes sense. Like, how's it going to go? What's my communication going to be like? I don't know a lot of these people personally. And the fact is, but I'm kind of more in the editing side of things, you know, in my normal life. So just get me to post, let me do that. The production part was like a dream. It wasn't easy, but it was so smooth, you know, it was like so wonderfully smooth. And a big part, if not the whole part, was really because these actors were so ready, down to earth, in it. You know, I can't say enough. They were really wonderful.
You mentioned that there were 25 speaking roles. One of the things
Yeah.
that I loved about the film is that every character kind of was like a character that stole their scene. They did like a really great job. So I wanted to know what went into like the directing process of like, and also writing those characters so that each one of those individual characters shines. Like there's no character where I'm like, oh, I didn't really remember that. I felt like every character got a moment to like really shine within the film.
Oh, thank you. I'm really glad to hear that. I think, you know, the main thing in terms of the writing part of it, the main thing for me was just like thinking about balance. Like honestly, just thinking about balance all the time, like that. You know, you got, I mean, there's probably like 10 different ways you could make like a metaphor for it, but basically it's like, you know, in the one sense, you know, Brian is like the sun and you need everyone to kind of orbit around him in a way that's like really where, you know, they get their time in the sun and then they kind of dip off and then they come back and, you know, some people pay off, some people's characters pay off, some people's characters, you know, they're there for one scene and then they kind of are gone and they're there maybe to teach Brian something or they're there to just have this kind of great interaction. But I think in general, you know, I was just thinking so much about balance. Like, I always wanted Brian to be like, he's in every scene. He's in actually, I think almost every single shot in the film. And, you know, for that, you want to kind of make it so that every interaction is fresh too. Everything's like kind of interesting. At the same time, you want to also be building to something, I think, you know what I mean? Like you can't just have everything be like a random one-off, like up, whoop, up, you know? So I wanted everything to be not everything, but I wanted things to basically tie back in some either direct, indirect, conscious or unconscious way back to his relationship or to the rut he's in. So there are some people who are kind of direct connections to his girlfriend, to Saniqua, to Isha, and then there are other people who I think like he's this guy, he's in a rut, he's like, you know, life isn't worth kind of being a part of and connecting with. So then I'm like, all right, I want a character that, you know, isn't like preachy, but I want to have this upstairs neighbor, Elena, the little girl, who when he kind of like gets her out of her shell and really gets to know her and goes into her apartment, sees that like, you know, if you want to talk about like a hard life, there's someone who's having a really hard moment, you know? And that actually brings up another thing. You know, the movie's a comedy, I would say. It's maybe a dramedy would be the clinical term. But, you know, in general, I also I tried to be, you know, sort of true to New York. You know, I sort of wanted, or maybe like true to the way New York is structured in the sense that you're walking down the street and you're going to see a couple people and, you know, you don't really notice them. Or you run into your friend and they're nice. What a good interaction. Life is sweet. New York's so great. And then you see something horrible, like just you run into something that just like, whoa, blows your mind. And it can really be that like kind of neck snapping. So again, I'm not trying to make like a major point here. I just was like, so when he meets Elena and he meets, you know, her mother and sees this kind of, I mean, I think that scene is kind of a scary-ish scene, you know, a scene that's kind of, not like disturbing is the wrong word, but like throws you off. And I think like when we showed that scene in like feedback screenings, people were like, I didn't like it. She was too mean. Like it's too not, and I was like, no, but that's the whole point. You know, like that's what like meeting your neighbors is all about. You're not everyone's going to be like this perfect, hello, welcome. I'm going to teach you about life. Come on in. You know, there's going to be stuff that's like kind of scary or just shocking or confusing. So I guess just to bring it back to your question, it was, trying to find a natural way to tell those stories, like hit those stories, and do it in an efficient way, I think was how I was approaching it. And hire great actors who can just like embody them in like, 2 minutes. Like they just show up and they're Asia Kate Dillon, they showed up and they're there for probably, it's probably 5 minutes of screen time, but they're, offering these thoughts and hitting in a way, hopefully that, is believable, even though you're only with them for, just a small piece of screen time. So.
One of the things that unintentional may not be the right word, but like the film is like especially timely right now, largely because we are all trapped at home. At least most of us are partly trapped at home. Right. And then maybe getting to know our immediate neighborhood a lot more than we've had to before. So I was wondering, in terms of so the film's been in other places, like how have people been reacting to that particular point? And what do you think the film can say about our current situation? Yeah, no, that's a great observation. I think people have been speaking to it. I mean, we ourselves, the thing is like you finish a film and you do think about it. I mean, it is crazy. A film takes 2 years to make, basically, pretty much at the minimum. I guess people make it faster, but let's say 2 years at the average 2 years. So a lot of times when you make it, when you shoot it, and then when you're done with it, what I discovered, and again, this what did not occur to me when I was making it, you're kind of in a different time. You're kind of in a different world. And some of that is like kind of scary and like, wait, does this film still make sense? Like, whoa, is this all right? Should I have hit that harder? Should I have brought emphasis on that? And you can't, in a way, you can't do anything about it. You kind of have to just live with it. But in other ways, there's serendipity that's always there to find, even when you're not in a pandemic, where you're just like, whoa, that line was like a throwaway. And now it actually like really makes sense with, what's going on in the world in this way. I will say it's funny also in a pandemic, didn't expect to talk so much about pandemics, but it's funny how, how much it dovetails, like exactly what you're saying, like, the film, another kind of big intention of mine was that the film is about how we take our worlds for granted, like in New York City or otherwise, and hopefully not trying to say that in a cheesy way, because we all know that. But it is like endlessly fascinating to me. I used to make a lot of documentaries, and it's kind of endlessly fascinating to me how much people just, like human instinct says, like, I know there's like wonderful special stuff happening like right next door to me, but who cares? I got to go to work. It's not a big deal. So I do think the pandemic and the virus and like insanity that we're living in, one of the main things I know it's doing for me is it's reminding me like, man, I love going to the store. I love like going to the bodega and I miss it. I just can't. I mean, I can go, but I mean, now I can mask it up and do the thing. But like, especially when New York was first like so out of control, just all those things you do that you just don't even think about. And now you really value like so deeply. And I think the film, again, I wanted Brian's character, I wanted Charles to be making those discoveries. Like, oh, this great restaurant I've never been in, like that's a block from my house. And I never thought about it. And now that I've gone in, it's like really special and like really wonderful. And what was I doing? Not like, going to this place all the time. So I certainly wasn't predicting anything as extreme as this, but that echo is like especially fascinating to me. And I do think people have kind of commented on it. And I think also it's funny, like you're also, when you make a film and you're trying to get distribution, you end up thinking a lot about marketing, I'm sorry to say. And so like, we've been like, I think we changed our tagline. Pre-pandemic tagline was unlock your life. Dig it, I love it, cool. Now I think that the one we were going with was, before we were locked down, he was locked out, like in other words, you end up thinking about that stuff. It's kind of crazy, but it also like helps you deal with it. So I don't know. It's just,
I don't know. Look, the main thing I miss, no, one of the main things I miss about the pandemic is just going to the movies. And I feel just really lucky that I have this movie that's done. I mean, if I was in the middle of shooting it or hadn't yet begun to shoot it, I think it would be gone. It would just have evaporated. So the fact that it's shot, that it's done, and that I can share it, that people can see it, is like really, I mean, just for me is like very moving and special. And like, so if people are watching this, or there are people out there right now watching this, I really like a huge thank you. And I'm so happy that you're seeing this. And yeah, so those are some of my pandemic thoughts.
One of the things I was struck by, I mean, I think the film does a really great job of like doing that, getting you. I remember watching the film the first time and being like, you know what, I should go for a walk, but it was the pandemic. So I really didn't. I put on my mask and then walked around a little bit. But one of the things, and you've touched on this multiple times, I'm a native New Yorker and I know a good portion of our viewers are originally from New York. It really does feel like a love letter to aspects of New York City. So I just wanted to like point that out and say it, because it really was, I missed the bodegas and I missed walking around and just happening to see it. And even weirdly, the traffic cops, because there was no alternate sidewalk working.
Yes.
The film does a really great job of capturing the essence of New York, which is that mix of like really awesome moments and sometimes really awful moments, and you kind of just keep going. One of the moments that I thought was actually really interesting was the moment in which so Isha comes to pick up her stuff, and then Charles is like super like excited. He's like, "Oh, our neighbor," and then Isha goes, "Yeah, no, I know her," and like does a handshake with him. So I wanted to like talk a little bit about like the juxtaposition of Charles's character with Isha, because like we don't get to see them really interact without his POV until the very end.
Right. No, that's a great point. Like, yeah, I mean, it's so funny. Like, oh man, I wish the movie was 3 hours long. I wish there was a sequel. I wish the Isha story was no, like, I think, you know, it's funny, like, again, I was saying about all the mechanical considerations that go into a film like this, just for me, which sounds so unromantic, which is like such a bummer. But it's just how you write, you know, sometimes how you write. And one of the first ideas I had, the one that like says to you, oh, you know, you now have permission to write this as a full feature, is, hey, what if there was a break? All right, so this guy gets locked out, and who's gonna, you know, the ultimate question is who's gonna bring him his keys? Well, what if it was he was in a relationship that fell apart, and the person who brings him his keys is his ex, in the sense like, I'm returning my keys to you. Like, just, it's meant to be coincidental that she just happens to come at that time to be like, I'm out for real, I'm getting my stuff, here's your keys back, and this allows him to get back in. So I thought that I enjoyed that idea. I enjoyed my own idea. No, like I thought that was a nice way to button up the script. But the downside of that is that how do you get to know this character? And certainly when I did rewrites, one thing that was really glaring to me, and I don't even think we totally solved it, to be honest, is that you're right. It is all from his POV. And, you know, on top of that, he's talking about her and, you know, and kind of so, you know, wronged by her, but also misses her. But what is it he misses about her? And, you know, I think that he hints at these things and you get these flashbacks. That was ultimately how I kind of tried to bring her more into the story. But ultimately, it, you know, it would, also the fact that Sonequa is like truly one of the most dynamic actors I've ever worked with in my life. You immediately wish that there was just more of her and more like her able to both speak for herself, which she does at the end, but also like really be a part of the kind of, I don't know, like the genesis, you know, of this whole kind of situation, and give her perspective also, like on him, you know. Ultimately, if he had listened to her, you know, he would probably not be in this situation. His life would be a lot happier. I mean, again, I don't think we tried to hit that on the nose, but that's kind of the point. At the end, he's like trying to kind of, you know, listen to her and kind of be more in her, follow her ideas. So I'm happy with how she kind of comes in and out and is kind of like, you know, you don't totally know, you know her more as the film develops. But it's funny because when the first draft of the script, you don't meet her until like the very end. Like you don't even like meet her in flashback. There's no flashbacks. She just pops in at the end. And it's interesting because that's a question for a screenwriter. Like, is it better to like have this gimmick and like you just sell out on it? You say it's going to be so worth it when she appears at the end, or is it better to really know this character? And I would say that for me, one transformation, and certainly for films going forward, is I actually think it's always more important to know the character and know the actor and to have their presence. Ultimately, people want to see actors. They don't want to hear about actors, hear about characters. They want to, I think, sorry audience, I don't mean to speak for you, but like in my case, you want to know these people. You want to know why he misses her, why he's so bummed out by her. So I hope I'm not sounding like I'm dissing my own film or critiquing it. It just was like one of the things I really learned about as I worked on it, as I cut it and as I rewrote it, to kind of really give her more agency. And I think honestly, there could even be more, not just because I think it's always good when characters have agency, but also because it goes back to the balance thing. You know so much about him. So it kind of makes sense if you're talking about their relationship to also know as much about her. And so, again, I think we hint at it for the sake of the structure of the film, but I do think it's interesting. It just was like, I guess what I'm trying to say is it was something I went back and forth as I worked on the film. So I hope that makes sense. Doesn't sound too cuckoo, but.
No, it does make sense. But I do think the film does a really good job of kind of grounding the character, though. Like that scene in and of itself kind of implies that she's a much bigger character than his POV accepts. And I think the film does a really great job of being like, because like up until a certain point, like initially you're kind of just like, what did she do? And then you realize, oh, and then you meet the other couple and you're like, double O. And then you meet her and she's like, yeah, no, I know all our neighbors already. What is wrong with you? And then you I thought her character in the way that she was slowly brought out was actually very well done. Because like by the end, I was kind of rooting for them to get back together because I was like, she sounds actually really awesome. And you sound like you need to get your life together. So it all worked out.
Yes, that is exactly. I'm glad to hear that.
And then I spoke about this character like slightly, but one of the characters that does return multiple times is the cop character who in the end kind of like comes in and then shows up. I wanted to know we're almost out of time, but like I wanted to know a little bit more about like the creation of that character.
I would be delighted. I mean, first of all, again, talk about favorite actors. Sunita Mani is, she is a wonderful person. She is the funniest person. She's in my favorite music video of all time. She's in the Turn Down for What music video. She's in Glow. Another person who I was like the very first person I reached out to for that character. Basically, I love her. I love the fact that the way she approached that character, she did something that was really interesting that I don't think was in the script, was she made Slater both like likable, but also kind of like vengeful, but also I thought the way she did the comedy was like very dry in like really a good way, like where she's really taking certain pleasures and giving tickets and kind of like how she's kind of like, busting Charles's chops. Like I really thought that she approached it in a way that was like he's kind of got he's bringing so much energy and it's so great, electric. And then she's this kind of like staunch kind of character until he kind of disrupts her with his own water balloon stunt and whatnot. I mean, with that, again, there's simple intent, simple thoughts. I have a car in New York City. I'm ashamed to admit it. I live in a neighborhood with alternate side of the street parking, which I don't know if your audience maybe knows a little bit about it. But basically, you have to move your car every week or every 2 weeks. Every week or every couple of days, in certain neighborhoods. And parking cops, I feel like are hated by everyone. Everyone hates parking cops. And in some cases, rightly so. But also they are people, they're not like regular cops. It's like I feel like they're people who are sort of just doing their job. I mean, at least that's the demeanor they kind of give off. And I guess I wanted Charles to have an antagonist that ultimately like changed into friend, but then not the friend. Just when you see their chemistry kind of developing, I'm hoping that, you know, you kind of think it's going into this romantic direction, and then does a kind of, again, a kind of abrupt shift. And so I just, that to me was what was most important. I talked to Sunita before the film, and she was like, well, do you think maybe at the very end, like that, you know, there should be this, should there be something, like she does have a little like spark for him? And I love that idea just because I think it adds like dimensionality, and it's like interesting. But I really thought that she was such a kind of principled character, rightly and wrongly so, that she wouldn't kind of break from her kind of first idea, her first thought, which was like, dude, we just met, what are you doing? And to kind of stick with that and then develop it into a friendship and whatnot. But I do think one thing I love about that character, and I love about her performance, I think she actually gives that, even sneaks in that spark with like the last shot. I think about that last shot of her a lot, that little like walk off. I just feel like that's like, again, this, not to jump around, but like Brian talked about this a lot. Like I talked about likability. And that was something that I didn't like think about a lot when I was going into the film. I think, oh, everyone, you're this kind of character, you're that kind of character. And Brian really was someone who was like such a kind of teacher about likability, you know, kind of like a spectrum of character. And so that shot to me, and about a million shots that Brian did, and Sonequa and everyone, but like that shot from Sunita, from Slater, I think really exemplifies that, where it's just, she just throws off a little bit of that spark, just enough to kind of, I don't know, just give a layer where you're like, you want to know more about her. You're so glad that you met her, I hope. Just my opinion, sorry audience, just my opinion. And yeah, I love her for that. And I love that character, again, for that ability to kind of swing back and forth between being this like city agent and also being this friend, friendly person. Access, something, you know, Charles ultimately has to have his kind of like sense of discovery and sense of like love of life pulled out of him. And so with some characters, especially the major characters, I tried to at least like do an echo of that. And so she's kind of, I think, has some of that too, where she's kind of this one way, by the book kind of person in the beginning, and then by the end is able to actually, you know, do something different, be a different kind of person. So I don't know, that's just some, I could go on and on about her. I think she's really wonderful.
She definitely snuck in the spark at the end. I definitely noticed.
Good, okay.
I thought, and I was
good,
like,
I'm glad.
Okay, that's a little, she walks away, she goes,
yeah,
like walks off. But we are running a bit out of time, so I just wanted to say, no, we're great. This is fantastic. I can talk to you about this film for forever. I did want to say, where else can viewers, like, of course it's showing at the Mill Valley Film Festival until the end of the festival, but where else can they learn about the film? Where should they go? Where should they watch it? The festival run will continue, so they should get in a car, drive to every city from here. They should go to our website is theoutsidestorymovie.com. That's going to have screenings, and it's going to have you know, eventually, hopefully, we will have distribution and be able to get out there in a kind of larger sense. And if you like this film, please like spread the word on it. Please tell people about it. That really is like so important to indie film. I can't stress enough these days how much indie film needs your love and support. So if you did kind of enjoy this film, please spread the word. And then also in a social media sense, even though I'm down on Facebook today, I've been down on Facebook for a while, but you can go to Instagram.com/theoutsidestory and Facebook.com/outsidestorymovie. Both have kind of our details and other things like that. And if you like us, that would be, again, so helpful to I can't tell you how much that would help an indie film. And there's a whole series of documentaries that I've been shooting, 1-minute interviews with the entire cast and crew. So if people want to check those out and hear them talk instead of me, I just kind of stood back and let them do their thing. So if you want to hear their thoughts, that the Instagram is a great place to go and see our 1-minute interviews with the cast and crew. And I think that's it. And then hopefully we'll be in theaters, which is, will we be in theaters? If there are theaters, we'll hopefully be in theaters, or more beautiful drive-ins or online in 2021. So hopefully in early 2021, if all things go according to plan.
So yeah, just please spread the word, and that would be amazing.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for watching The Outside Story at Mill Valley Film Festival. Have a great day.
Yes, thank you so much.